Amir Khan is the representative for Church World Service in Southern California. Church World Service is the refugee and disaster relief and development agency for the National Council of Churches. So it is therefore because we work ecumenically and everything that we do that is possible to do ecumenically. So Church World Service is us, along with about 30 other Protestant and Orthodox denominations, and often working closely with the Catholic social services. And I'm going to ask you 4 questions during the about 40 minutes that we have. The first one is about yourself, and the second one is an overview. The second one is an overview of what Church World Service does very briefly. A third one is specifically what is a BOLAG, and how do they work, and what has happened to them, and how we are fighting back against the attack on volunteer organizations active in resettlement, including our own work through Church World Service, resettling ever since World War II. So the first question is, help us to get acquainted a little bit with yourself and your own journey from Afghanistan, and where you're now located, and just a little bit about yourself, and then we'll move to Church World Service after a few minutes.
Good morning, everyone. It's an honor to be with you this morning. Thank you for having me, Virginia, for the invitation. I appreciate that. My name is Amir. I was born and raised in Afghanistan. In 2022, I got involved with the churches and nonprofits. When I got involved with that, that's a very spirit that touched my life, and I continue to be touched with that. In our village, we are a part of a minority group in Afghanistan. We were blocked by the Taliban, and at that time there was not enough of food, water, or hygiene supplies. A few years after that, it was tracks after tracks that they pulled over in our village. And, you know, I want to say that they were the people that didn't look like us, they didn't speak our language, and not even the same culture or anything. But they were very kind. They were kind, and you can see the kindness with their action. You can see the action with their language and everything. So at that time, me and my dad, we pulled over to them, and I said, you know, we don't have the money to buy the food. They said, this food is not for sale. And this is from the American people for you guys. And actually, they saw that we were scared. They actually asked us. And then they said, well, we will provide you. And it was a bag of rice, a can of oil, some salt, and a school backpack. So remember that the school backpack at that time. You know, how important is that somebody came thousands of miles from here to give me school backpacks? That touched my life. And since then, I said, I want to be one of them one day. I said, I want to be one of them, and I actually got very emotional every time I thought about that, because that was really, really something that I'm doing it right now, and I'm proud of that, and I'm really honored to be here. I have, you know, I have 3 kids, and we used to live in Los Angeles. Actually, I came in the US in 2014 after working with nonprofits, with Catholic Youth Service, with you know, with international school community, and right now with Church World Service. When I came here in 2014, I went to school here. I went to school at Los Angeles College, and I said I want to become educated, I want to learn the culture, and then I'm going to be admitted into the society. Then we started at college. I said, and then I did my undergrad and then grad, and then right now I'm part of the city. Right now I go to Claremont University here. I do my PhD right here right now. I used to live in Los Angeles for about 10 years. I moved from Los Angeles in Victor Valley, Apple Valley area a year ago, bought a house here with my family, and everybody is very happy and with the work of charitable service. Now I'm shifting to charitable service, but charitable service going to be a next question. Charitable service was founded in 1946, right after World War II. As Jenny explained, at that time, 17 Christian denominations got together. At that time, it was fixed 17 Christian denominations, and of course, the United Church of Christ was one of them. Got together and founded this organization, Church for Service. Why they founded Church for Service? Because our friends, our neighbors in Europe and in Asia, they were suffering from malnutrition. They were not enough food because of the war and all of that. For the first 10 years, Church for Service mobilized over 1 million pounds of food, clothing, and hygiene supplies and shipped Europe and East Asia at that time. So what happened at that time? Council of Churches around the country got together and they developed a program. It's called Claremont, and it's still going on. Right now, we have about 465 Claremont around the country that there is fund. Part of the fund goes to the food banks in the community, and some of the 25% of the fund goes to charitable service to support refugees, support food malnutrition, and in the countries that suffering from them. And that tradition continues until now. And right now we have 37 Christian denominations that are on city of this board, and we have a board that are part of the organization, that managing the organization. That is good. So in your third question about a refugee and WOLAG, volunteer organization, basically non-profit, or we can call it resettlement agencies.
VOLAG, VOLAG.
Yeah.
It's an abbreviation for
volunteer organization. Yeah, volunteer organization that are doing resettlement work in the United States. There's a couple of, there's actually 12 of the 12 resettlement agencies around the country, but since Trump took office, in a series of executive orders in the first couple of months, and they basically shut down the refugee programs. And you saw that there's a ban right now and all of that. And I'm talking about refugees, that there's other people that they go through the State Department clearance program, and sometimes 10 to 12 years or sometimes 15 years staying in the refugee line. To come and use, they will do reduced background check, clearance, and all of that medical check. And I was one of them that went through all of that, and then you came here. Currently, that program is suspended. As a council of churches around the country, and church will service along with other organizations actually sued some organization in that purpose, but the case was fought in several courts. And recently, on our September 3rd, we had a hearing at the casino, the 9th Circuit Court as well here, and I was one of them when I spoke to the media. That is still going on, but as far as the refugee right now, the refugee program is right now dead. It's completely dead. There is no funding coming out to that way. That's number one. Number two is for the fiscal year 2026. Right now, there are rumors that they will allow only 7,500 refugees. And majority will be allocated.
I think it's worse than a rumor. Yeah. It's worse than a rumor. I think that's an announcement.
There's an announcement. Okay. So 7,500, but the fun part is that majority of them will be allocated to South Africa, and it's called that there is a genocide going on based on the travel position in South Africa. They want to allocate it for them. But if you know that there's only 6 or 7% South African white people, but they own about 80% of the wind in South Africa. That's actually right there. So that's part of the set of charitable service. But charitable service closed 7 offices after the Trump administration in office. The funding was cut, so we closed 7 of our offices permanently in the United States. We closed 7 of our offices all the way from California to New York and Michigan, and this area. We closed, I have the list here. We closed 7 of our program offices. That's one. And also we laid off permanently 600 CWS employees in the US and around maybe 600, but thousands of contractors that work for the children's service and the city. So that is number two. But also I want to mention a little bit about the USA program, USA United States Aid for International Development, USA. So as you know, the USA after I believe 73 years that is completely abolished the USA programs, and that is one of the very I call it very dangerous situation right now around the world, because clinics that they were relying on the USA right now, they can provide any basic services. Most of the clinics are completely closed, and when a woman or pregnant, when they go to the hospital door, they found the hospital door closed, and sometimes they give birth outside the hospital. And in that case, there are examples. For example, one of the examples that I know of very well in Afghanistan, about 420 clinics have been closed. And this is not something that we bring on the news. This has been on the BBC News, and there's been everywhere on the news that 420 hospitals have closed. And then there are reports that women and children will be gone and out of the clinic because there's no nutrition and there's no midwife or nurse, and they will continue to suffer even in the worst case they pass away. So that is one. And what we do in church service right now, you will support by here every year. I didn't say that before, but I want to say this. I really appreciate United Church of Christ right here at Claremont. You guys have been part of supporting church service for years, every year during the Christmas and Thanksgiving Christmas market. I got an invitation last year, and I got an invitation again. We have been invited this year again. We really appreciate all of you being part of this. Right now,
let me review the ways in which we already support church will service, and then mention, of course, the obvious, that it's possible to do it in still a direct, more personal way at this time. Budget that we support with our pledges includes funding for BOMSA, and BOMSA includes church world service among the institutions which year after year after year it sends money to. So that's number one route. And we give money to our denomination, and the denomination gives support to church world service, and its sponsor, the National Council of Churches. Then for many years, we have included church world service as one of the 20 or so opportunities for giving at the annual Christmas, alternative Christmas offering. So then he organizes crop walks in Southern California. We don't have one here locally. Maybe there could be one in the future. There's one in Pasadena, there's one in Fullerton, there's one in Long Beach, and perhaps we can reassemble one here. But then we, like the other Protestant and Orthodox churches working together, have been campaigning against the cutoff of refugee support for VOLAGs, and then we are suing. We are suing because we're citizens of California, and California is suing the government over its destroying of its refugee resettlement programs. And as members of a congregation that is part of Church World Service, our denomination and Church World Service have sued the government, saying that the attack that they have made on VOLAGs is a violation of allocations that have been made by Congress, and that it is unconstitutional and illegal for the unilateral cutoff. They do have the right to set, under the law, a target goal. And so this weekend, they announced a target goal, the lowest ever, 7,500 people instead of 100,000, 200,000. You know, I mean, tiny little goal. One of the dangers is that when the VOLAGs shut down, lay off their staff, lose their volunteers and the relationship with volunteers. And then along comes the recovery, and Congress says, oh no, we gotta have these. They're gone. And then, so it takes years to build up those volunteer relationships. This is damage that isn't cured just by turning the switch back on and saying, okay, here's money again. The damage that's being done to these volunteer agencies active in refugee resettlement will last a long, long time. The damage is horrible. And so anything that we're able to do, both to litigate and to give support to what's left of Church World Service refugee resettlement during this period of time, is really important. Comments, and then from you, and then we'll take questions.
In that regards of refugee, I just want to add that currently around 13,000 refugees that they waited for a long time, some of them decades, are clear to come in the year. Some of them even their tickets were booked, but it was cancelled right now. So 13,000. So the 7,500 doesn't even cover that 13,000 papers that they are already approved. But currently right now in the refugee pipeline, there is 120,000 people that they are eligible and considered as a refugee by the State Department itself, that they are eligible to come. But there was a court hearing in Pasadena that they had questioned that there was about that situation. They released that we are still waiting for them to have a decision. There hasn't been a decision. There have been a few press releases about that, but we don't know exactly what they're going to do in terms of the court. As Evgeny mentioned, in terms of refugee, the president has the authority to decide the cap on that presidential determination, and there's actually laws about that. They call it 1980s Act that they actually give the authority to the president to make that decision. So we will see in terms of that. It's going to take the case, and we don't know exactly what will happen with those people that they are actually scheduled to come. Now it's cancelled, so that's going right now. We open the floor for questions.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us. I've worked in the immigration space, and I've had the honor, the privilege to work with several Afghan families, including one family who was evacuated and when the Taliban took back over in August of 2021, who is now in Adelanto in the detention center. The Trump administration and most of the people that were evacuated, I'm not sure if you all know, but they were paroled in. They did not come in as refugees. And so they're not eligible for immediate benefits or anything like that. The Trump administration stopped renewing those parole, those OAW paroles for Afghans. They said that they were going to put a pause on people that were ever paroled in, advancing any kind of status. There have been special immigrant visa holders, people that translated or interpreted for U.S. And military or coalition forces, or contractors that have been detained in immigration hearings. There's been videos on this. And TPS, the temporary protected status for Afghans, was canceled. And the Secretary of Department of Homeland Security said that the situation in Afghanistan has now stabilized and it's a safe place to be. I'm just curious what your response is to these, series of basically slaps in the face to the Afghan community.
Thank you very much for your service and for your help. I would say that's a betrayal especially for the people that they put their life in danger supporting the troops in Afghanistan, especially the language interpreters. And I was one of them. I was lucky here, and I tell you that whoever tell Afghanistan is safe, I'm not sure how based on what basis they say it's safe. That makes me laugh, and it simply makes me angry, because our point of view is that country that women are not allowed to go to school, right? As you all know. And there is no medical doctor for women and children. So you tell me this is safe? Thousands of schools are closed, and millions of women are, they're not even allowed to go to school. This administration, instead of attacking those few hundreds or thousand refugees here, they should talk to the Taliban to open that all the schools, right? But not only bringing pressure on the refugees to go back. If you go back, you saw in the news that every day they are detaining any American people that they go to bring their families, and then we just say like, "Oh, what is that?" There's no such thing as a safe society right here. And if you know, a few days ago they blacked out the internet, right? For 2-3 days, people like there was no internet, and that's you call that safe. Based on what basis you call that safe? And there is no international prisons, there is no rule of law, there is no any international committees, and now you can call that safe. And in terms of immigration, those Afghans that they came here, most of them they were affiliated with the US government. Only maybe a few of them that they got here somehow, but majority of them, I can tell you 90% of them, they were that somehow they were affiliated with the US government and supported the US government.
My understanding is that in addition to South African so-called refugees, there has continued to be a very small trickle of Afghan SI refugees. Has Church World Service been involved with resettlement of those Afghans? And second, are you hearing rumors relative to the FY 2026? Will there be any Afghan numbers included in the 7,500?
That's a great question. The Afghan SIV program, Special Immigration Visa and Family-Based Petition, they are still continue, and but the numbers are very, very low. So they still continue, but the numbers are very low compared to 25,000 applicants that are in the pipeline right now. But the numbers, the SIV program is people, Afghan, those who are able to safely travel out of the country, but it has been very difficult for the SIV programs. That even they have the SIV application, you're based in Afghanistan, and it's very difficult for you to go to your country because for the interview, like if you travel from Afghanistan to Pakistan, the Pakistan government sometimes do not provide visa for you, and even if they provide visa, they will still deport back in Afghanistan. So that's, they can keep opening it, but the situation is very dark in that case, and there are a lot of them are going to be prosecuted. In terms of Church World Service, yes, our offices around the country do provide the settlement services for Afghanistan, those who make it here. But that's a tricky question since the PRM, Bureau of Refugee and Migration, they don't provide. But as you know, you work in the resettlement agency. We don't get the resettlement agency do not get money in advance. Okay, this is a form of reimbursement. So, for example, they said, okay, in the resettlement agency, what they do is the State Department says there's many people are approved, and then they send that number to the offices, and then the offices provide resettlement services. And then after, based on the services, you get the reimbursement. And then we have challenges still getting back those reimbursement. But one thing to make it clear that a lot of time we hear that the government provide free healthcare, and it's nothing is like free. So every refugee that they come in the US based on the state, sometimes they get, as you know, $1,225 per person. Sometimes it's $1,300, but it depends on the state. And I think in California it's $1,275. And then that's one-time grant and they give you, and then after that is by yourself, you have to look for a job and do everything yourself. In terms of we do have an office in Orange County, actively supporting, but to shift from situation to Afghan, that office is mainly also supporting Ukrainian refugees. And since 2022 until now, we provided services for about 44,000 Ukrainians in the US and in Moldova. We do have an office in Moldova that supports Ukrainian refugees. Those are.
Could you repeat that number?
44,000. 44,000 Ukrainians. We have provided support to our offices in East Europe. Moldova is a very poor country compared to the rest of the East Europe, and we continue to provide services. We do have an office in Moldova. In 2024, we opened an office in Odessa, Ukraine, to support the LGBT communities, the elderly, and mostly our services goes to women and children. that they don't have any head of household. We try to elevate their situation in terms of food and provide any mental care or anything that are not available because of the war.
Can you say a few words of update about the forced evacuation of Afghan refugees in Pakistan?
Yes. On the media, we saw what we see is that even there were cases that even they have the visa, they will still be deported back from United States, that usually deport back from Pakistan to Afghanistan. And in that case, thousands have been deported back. But there's also another data that we don't talk about is that that thousands and thousands of Afghans that they were affiliated or work and feared their life from Iran as well have been deported back to Afghanistan from Iran. That's even more numbers compared to the numbers that go from Pakistan. And then when these people they go back, there's there's no job, there is no housing, and basically there is no medical care. And there are few offices that are open, a few clinics that are open are very, very constrained, and the supplies are very limited in that case. Yeah, the numbers are staggering numbers. Children's service. We do have an affiliated office in Pakistan. It's called Community World Service Asia. In the past 2 earthquakes that happened in Afghanistan, one in 2022, one was in August 31st, last month. We've seen a couple of our staffs through that office that they've been to Afghanistan and then provided hot meals and sometimes even assist them to rebuild their houses. It's not that significant, but it's elevating the situation, especially for the women and children that they don't have enough households. The one that they have enough household, no, but it's basically those who that don't have any providers. So that's what we try to do. And these services right now that we provide is around in the US, around the country, there's a lifeline right now. The services that every dollar that you give to them is no longer a support, it is a lifeline. It's basically a lifeline in the communities. And I'm sure you all know that the food banks are carrying off too. The food banks are about 20%, all the food banks are in the country. And then, and it's going to be really difficult for people to receive food stamps. And if you know, in Vermont, they passed a bill a few years ago that those who have green card, especially Afghans, they will not be included to receive food stamps and medical to that. And then there's Pennsylvania, I think, following up, and there are other states that they're trying to cut back their support. So these are some of the situations. But there's many that we give right now children's service. I used to call it support, but now I call it lifeline. Basically filling the gap. And food banks, we work with them. Let me also tell about that is that I said a little bit about the crop hunger walk. It has been around since in 1956, so about 55 something years. We have about 465 crop hunger walks around the country, and we support about 835 food banks in the US through the churches, and then churches and denominations they got together, and then we raise funds about whatever money we raise in the community. 25% goes back to food banks, 75% support in emergency response, and as well a little bit of international support. But one example I can give you is that in Pasadena, when the fire happened in Los Angeles area, Children's Service actively supported the Pasadena wildfires. We provided kits and blankets and rations, and it was all over. And then one of the main supported them. And the hurricanes, Helene and Milton and floods in Texas, we provided thousands of dollars in terms of emergency support. And in North Carolina, a lot of this area, we don't say, these states or whatever state. Anywhere happened with the disaster, we show up here as a organization.
Can you talk just a little bit about how you prioritize when there's so many things going on? And how do you work with other organizations like Red Cross and so forth to make sure that everything gets sort of covered?
As a church world service, we work with collaboration with a lot of our partners in the US in terms of emergency response when it happens. As you know, nonprofit organizations are not an emergency response organization. We provide supplemental supports. For example, it's basically the FEMA and first responder respond, but we do provide supplemental support in terms of kits, blankets, hygiene, and cleanup packets. And that's a cleanup package the church world service provide. A lot of organizations, they don't have it, and we provide the cleanup packets. And those cleanup packets are put by churches around the country, thousands of them. And then we ship them, and we have warehouses in Elkhart, Indiana, and around the country. And then any organization that have a 501(c)(3) status, they request that kits and blankets, and then we ship them for free. So church world service doesn't charge, and then we keep them and we ship them for free. And then we do that. We work with collaboration with a lot of nonprofits in the country to respond. And there's actually in every states there is a committee that they respond, and then church world service is always on the board of that committee that they respond. And then we see which area, where is the gap, and that area that need is not met, and then we go. For example, sometimes the government money that does not include refugees, or maybe the people that they are vulnerable, other than we go there and then we support that. Well, there are communities that single communities that they need cleanup packets, or they need hygiene, or they need blankets. We do provide that, and thousands of them provided last year, and we even right now we provide that. I have the report, and if you want to see that, I will be happy to provide it. And I have I think I have a couple of annual report that I can give, and we can have a clear shot of what's going on.
The role of the Church of the Brethren and the headquarters that does the material aid. One of the denominations that works through Church World Service is Church of the Brethren, and they have for decades, starting I think before World War II, had a material distribution center, and so it is they, on behalf of Church World Service, that buys blankets by the hundreds of thousands and uses volunteers to create kits. Hygiene kits and so by the thousands, and then Church World Service ships those. So it's an Elkhart, isn't it?
It's in Elkhart, Indiana.
In Elkhart, Indiana. So it's an economy by scale operation. The other thing to say about us, of course, is that we don't send American missionaries as we once did, and as some of my housemates in Pilgrim Place were part of that movement. We work with partner organizations of the nation in which we're working, and so our style is to support churches, councils of churches, church-sponsored development organizations everywhere, and so there are relatively few Americans involved overseas in our work, and that's been very intentional. More and more others are following that pattern, but I think we, in the National Council of Churches and in the United Church of Christ, we were early on to say that this is part of our contribution to dismantling legacies of colonialism and making sure that we're doing the right thing, because the we is not just Americans, the we is our colleagues in Christian service around the world, and service also with other faith groups.
Yeah, that's the Church of Brethren. They provided that warehouse for many years. I think that center is closing this year, but we have other warehouses that they are providing as a space for kids and blankets and cleanup packets and hygiene and ministerial hygiene, especially the ministerial hygiene. And I'm sure if you know the data is that about 22 million American adults that they didn't have access to ministerial hygiene. So that has been also one of the big part of CW's Kids and Blankets, including starting a couple of years ago, the ministerial hygiene, and then we provide that, and a lot of homeless shelters they request that, and there are part of the rural Americans that they needed, they request that, and we provide that, and that has been also on the chain. I do have some flyers how that works, and in terms of that, and but I'm also hoping, as we discussed earlier, that hopefully we can bring the crop underwalk back here, and I'm really advocate for that, and that is something that you can see the work of church service, and you can see how the rest of the denomination will jump in. So and in a lot of areas, United Church of Christ is one of the main organizer of crop underwalk in many areas. Even in Washington, I was in Washington last weekend. The Bainbridge Congregation United Church of Christ, which is the denomination of Church of Christ, they organize the Bainbridge crop underwalk, and then there's another one on the other side in Seattle and Washington that they organize, and then the other denomination jump in, and then they all get together, and it's not only providing support, but it's also as a sense of solidarity with the rest of the denomination, the rest of the people, which we really like, and people from all walks of life coming that day. It's a fun day. It's also supporting, and it's bringing community together, and that's what I'm really in terms of that compared to all the nation. I want to see the all communities, the denominations come together and learn from each other, and we can respond in terms of a disaster. If we don't know and there's no connection, we can respond, and then. I think that's something hopefully we can work here with a few of you. It doesn't take a lot. We do have the tools and equipments and everything, the website, and we also provide all the materials and the training. And we can do that. And as Jenny mentioned, we do have a common walk in Fullerton, which happened last spring. This fall, next weekend, we have a common walk in Pasadena. At this time, 50% of the money that we raise in Pasadena will go back to the food banks in Pasadena. And then we have one walk in Long Beach. And then we're going to have in November, we're going to have one in San Fernando Valley. And also we're going to have one in Glenville, California. And then there's a lot of smaller walks around the country that church and people of field walk.
Okay. There were members of our Board of Mission and Social Action in the room who were listening, and we'll, I'm sure, discuss what's possible along that line. Okay, this concludes both this morning's session and the 6-week series of social justice, social action narratives sponsored by the Board of Mission and Social Action and the Board of Arts, Education, and Music. And we hope to come back and do another 6-week series starting the Sunday after Easter. And I think this room will next be used for the wonderful pastoral Bible study sessions that Jacob leads so well. So that's what's on the deck in this room starting next Sunday. Class dismissed. And I thank you so much, Emil, for coming over here today and being with us.
Thank you.